Good morning. My name is Patricia Devine, and I am a member of the Worship and Music Committee. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Welcome to our virtual service with First Plymouth Congregation. These services will also be posted on our Facebook page and on YouTube. If you're having any technical difficulties, please let us know, and we'll have someone reach out to you to help. The first part of our service is recorded. The benediction will follow the closing hymn today. Then we will go into our Candles of Joy and Concern, which is unrecorded. Our service today is led by Jen and Dave Yeager. Jen and Dave are distinguished educators within the Plymouth School District, and they are both renowned and very talented musicians. Our minister, Reverend Art Lavoie, will return to the pulpit in late August. We hope you will stay for our virtual coffee hour and conversation after the service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever you believe, wherever you are on your journey, come walk with us this hour. Let us walk together this hour. The call to worship today is a poem entitled Pandemic by Reverend Lynn Ungar. What have you thought of it as the Jews consider the Sabbath, the most sacred of time? Cease from travel, cease from buying and selling, give up, just for now, on trying to make the world different than it is. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. And when your body has become still, reach out your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Do not reach out your hands, reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we live. We will now move to our first hymn of the morning. It's number 38 in the gray hymnal, Morning Has Broken. Dave will play on the guitar and sing, and you should all sing along.
Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the sweetness of the wet garden, sprung in completeness where his feet pass. Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light. harps all play. Praise with elation, praise every morning. God's recreation of the new day. Morning has broken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for the singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the world.
It is now time to light the chalice. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in freedom, to speak the truth in love, and to help one another.
Good morning. The musical reflection is Scarborough Fair. we go.
Are we on? All right.
So, hold on a minute. A little technical, logistical piece.
All right. Ready to go?
Paul, can you give us the thumbs up that you can hear us? Okay, we're all good. Okay,
All
and
right.
you can see the screen too. Okay.
All right. Good morning, everyone. This is, I guess, sort of a homily, but I did type it up, so it's a reading. I'm reading it, so it's a reading and a homily. And the title of this is Spiders, a Beloved Outhouse, and a Flush of Roses. And it is about our experience staying at home during this pandemic. The stay-at-home experience has had some unexpected consequences. One of the positive ones has been the gift of time. Slowing down enough to notice our surroundings has opened our eyes to all manner of mysteries, including how long it sometimes takes an image to load. I'll just continue. For example, Jen and I have spent an inordinate amount of time observing spider webs and noticing all the questions that they bring about. How long can a spider live without food? How do they connect the first thread across the span from the porch post to the holly bush? How long do they live? Do different species weave distinct webs? I suspect the spiders have been there all along. We have just been too busy to notice them. We are interested in spiders, and we have devoted a fair amount of attention to them. I think it is getting dangerously close to saying we care about the spiders. It seems that it is easy not to care about something you don't see, but once you become aware of a thing, it's hard to unsee it. Jen dedicated some of her time to rescuing our outhouse from ruin. It is a small building in a corner of our yard, a 3-seater throwback to a time before indoor plumbing. We use it to store some random items, but we used it to store some random items, but mostly the mice took over, and it was pretty unpleasant inside. As part of the clean-out, we left the door open for a couple of days to make it less of a safe haven for nesting mice. When Jen put on her hazardous material suit and got to swabbing it out, she found a bird's nest over the doorway and was quite surprised by the 6 tiny eggs it contained. Suddenly, we became bird watchers, noticing daily how the eastern phoebes guarded the door and learning that we had best keep our distance under threat of a dive bomb attack. One day we were concerned because we were able to approach the outhouse without a challenge from the guards. It turned out that the parents were off duty because the birds had fledged and the nest was out of service. While I'm sure there are many nests in the woods behind our house, it was only the nest we saw that we cared about. Again, awareness was the first step in caring about our birds. From our porch chairs, we can survey the results of Jen's new hobby, gardening. There are all sorts of flowers growing, most of which I cannot name, but I can name the rose bush. We have appreciated the abundant flowers, and we learned that we were completely ignorant of the care needed to keep a rose bush full of blooms. We have learned that if you give roses enough attention, they will reward you with a prolonged display of flowers. The catch is that you have to learn the right pruning techniques, which requires some effort. There is a ready community of gardeners who want to share the required information. It is up to us to choose to listen and learn from them. The gift of time has shown us the importance of noticing our surroundings. If we keep our blinders on, willfully or out of habit, we miss much of what is going on in the world around us. And what we do not see, we do not care for. In addition, while awareness is a big and necessary step, if we want to maintain the things we value, such as beautiful roses, we need to learn how to nurture them and provide the right conditions for them to thrive. This is what we learned from the microcosm of our yard, and it occurs to me that the same lesson seems to apply on a much larger scale. Jen might have something to say about this. Switch seats.
So Jen, this is Paul. I went to the musical reflection before Dave instead of after. Do you want us to do that again, or do you want to jump right in?
I think they just flow together, so why don't we just move right to the next one?
Go for it.
Okay. Hopefully the images will come up this time. Yeah. Okay. Why is that?
Oh, just some of them come up.
I don't know.
All right, go to sleep there. Go.
Okay. So a little technical difficulties on this side, but we're used to that. So to me, the beginning wasn't about spiders or outhouses or my garden, but about wanting to protect my family and keep us locked up in a bubble. So imagine this slide that shows a house in a bubble. That's what was there. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I had panic attacks that could only be calmed by Dave's gentle voice reading to me, or by walks outside amid the still, chilly spring air. But once I started to trust in all of our precautions, I also started to ease into a new, beautiful, simplified life with my family at home in our bubble. And this kind of life was one that I had been desperate for, especially as the children had turned into teenagers with busy, independent lives. And I wasn't alone in this feeling. There were so many of us, parents of teenagers who would quietly whisper or pantomime from about 6 feet apart that we felt guilty for enjoying so much of this togetherness with our children when there was so much pain and turmoil and grief just beyond the safety of our own front yards. And we knew our children were missing the social connectedness of school. And that's not to mention even the families that didn't have a safe home to be in, or the joy and love of the family that we have here at home. So those early weeks of strict lockdown for me were a gift, and the strongest emotion I can express toward that period is gratitude. Gratitude for the chance to parent just a little while longer, and for the opportunity to teach Annie and Ben so many things that fell through the cracks. How to actually put soap in the sponge when you wash the dishes. That is a true piece of advice I just recently gave. How to wipe down the counters after making a sandwich. How to follow a recipe, and how to notice what needs to be done. How to notice what needs to be done without always being asked. This Post-it note from Annie on the next slide felt like such a victory. We found it in the refrigerator. It reads, "Near death, lettuce, cilantro, radishes." She noticed. It wasn't just us. Even how to change a tire. And you can imagine an image of Dave and the kids changing a tire here. For that period of a few weeks, this bubble was a sacred haven from everything. I shut off Facebook. I barely spoke to friends. I stopped watching the news and consumed only satisfying BBC dramas that led me to escape into another world. It was a satisfying and beautiful retreat from the overwhelming reality of what was around us. But it couldn't last, because I am too much of this world. My parents, siblings, and extended family, my friendships, my work, my community. One day I called my mom and said, "Can you meet me in Sandwich at the boardwalk in 20 minutes? "Of course," she replied, as I expected. What she didn't know was that I had thrown in 2 extra hats and 3 extra scarves in the car so that when I saw her, I could wrap myself up and ask for a hug. The longest, strongest, most desperate hug I can remember giving or receiving. I just wanted my mom. That is me behind those scarves. And that connection, that touch, that was something I couldn't share with my mom in my bubble. And so we popped a little hole in that bubble of security and began to open ourselves up. First, there was Easter brunch on the porch and my mom seated 10 feet away. You can picture that too. There were neighbors who came to listen to Dave as he played on the porch. And birthday parade upon birthday parade, as you can picture here, a shared moment of laughter and glee in an otherwise isolated time. And of course, chaotic, noisy, love-filled weekly Zoom sessions with babies and cousins, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles from near and far. More recently, we became even braver and had a historic speech contest with another family, each sitting on our own part of the yard. Each of us, children and adults, came ready to deliver a speech, and we spent the evening listening to each other and sharing compliments and even tips about our delivery. Who would have imagined we could wrangle our kids into such an exercise only a few short months ago? I won't pretend for a moment that events like this have become the norm. We have had our fair share of TV and video games and listless afternoons. But the moments of creativity and connectedness are ones that blossomed because of the gift of time in our home. And you know what's coming here. You know what this slide is about. Because you don't stay in that bubble forever. You know what happens when you venture out. First you dip in one toe, and then you're in the deep end. You've reinstalled Facebook and started reading the news again. It only seems to take a half a moment to be stopped in your tracks, to be drawn back in, because as comfortable as it can be to stay in our bubble, I know that my health and safety, in mind and body and spirit, depends on health and safety of all of those around us. And what I have to teach my children, and to be truthful, what they have taught me and Dave about being part of this world is just as important as what it means to be apart from it these days. So I stood out with signs at the polls, and we stood in solidarity at the Black Lives Matter vigil. And then we placed a sign on our front yard, because while we now had time to pause and notice the flowering blooms and the new flower bed and the spiders making their web and the birds finally finding our bird feeder, we also had time to watch and listen and learn from the groundswell of protest, the voices of those who had been ignored, the images of violence done in the name of law and order. And we knew that the world outside also needed our voice, as small as it may be. So we placed our sign on the front yard, and I'll admit I was timid about it at first. With the sign facing busy Herring Pond Road, what would this mean to our neighbors with whom we'd never discussed our views about the world? Would it make us less safe if passersby decided to confront us about it? The sign meant we could no longer hide on our porch behind our binoculars. And then we had an appraiser come to the house, a man of color who got out of his car, walked up the driveway, introduced himself, and said, "You don't know what it means to me to see that sign there. I know that I can let my guard down." And that sign, a very, very small step outside of our bubble, made it clear that to live in this world in a way that feels right, I will always have to balance, or attempt to balance, my newfound joy in the quiet of home with the realization that we cannot stay in this bubble forever. And now I will pass this on. And now it's time for closing hymn number 159, This Is My Song.
Feel free to sing along.
Please do.
Go ahead with the benediction.
Thank you, Paul. May you be blessed with awareness of the community around you, have the patience to listen, and the will to learn how we can best take care of one another. Go in peace.